Hi guys, so today's topic is something that we have found hilarious probably from day one, probably still in the caveman days. They found it hilarious, we still find it hilarious today. Let's talk about you and your fats. Fat comes from an old English word fjorten, which means to break wind. There's so many other words we have for fat. Break wind, flatulate, toot, booty burps, cut the cheese. You could go on forever. But the medical term for fats is flatulate. So the definition of fats is just gas in your intestines. That's it. I have some fat facts for you. So we actually fart around 10 to 20 times a day, and most of that is at night. So when you're sleeping, you're letting go of a lot of gas, and the amount of gas most people fart is around 500 mils to 1 liter of gas a day. And my question is, who measured that and how did they measure that? Okay, so let's talk about where our fats come from. So all this gas inside of our abdomen, our intestines, comes from two places. It comes from the outside. So when you're eating, when you're swallowing, when you're chewing, you swallow air into your digestive system, and sometimes that comes out as fat. And the other source of our fats is our bacteria. So before we talk about our friendly bacteria, let's just look at the anatomy of the digestive system. So you start basically from your mouth. You go from your mouth to your esophagus that goes down to your stomach. Then you have your small intestine. Your small intestines absorb most of the nutrients that you need. So that's where most of the stuff, let's say like glucose or protein or fats, they're absorbed in your small intestine. Then you have your large intestine, also known as the colon. So this is where a lot of water is reabsorbed and where feces is made. Most of the time you hear bacteria, you think it's a bad thing, but our intestinal system has a lot of bacteria. By a lot, I mean we have 10 times more bacteria in us than we have our own cells. So I think that makes us more bacteria than human. So the majority of the bacteria in our digestive system is in our colon, our large intestines. So the food has come through the small intestine. All the nutrients, whatever it is you need for you, has been taken through the small intestine. So now we're starting to form the poop, the feces. And this is where water and other things are being regulated. So what's formed in the feces is things that we don't need, things that we're not going to absorb. Our bacteria feeds off what we haven't used, what we can't digest. And the majority of that is carbohydrates. Specifically undigested carbohydrates. These are the type of carbohydrates we can't break down, we can't absorb, we're not going to use. So the bacteria digest this undigestible carbohydrates for their own nutrients, and then they also produce their own waste. But some of that waste is actually stuff that we need, like some vitamins. So this is why our gut bacteria is important for our health, because what they produce we also use. The bacteria produces some nutrients, its own waste, and gas. So this gas, which is being produced by trillions of bacteria, is what we produce. So really, our fats are our bacteria's fats. So we all know there's different types of fats. There's the loud fats, there's the silent fats, there's the smelly fats, there's the silent but deadly fat. We have all sorts of categories for fats. So why do we have different types of fats? Why do some not smell, and why do some smell like you're rotting on the inside? This all has to do with what you're feeding your bacteria. So the types of carbohydrates that we're feeding our bacteria does impact the kind of fats that we make. So let's have a look at the different types of undigestible carbohydrates. So the first type is sugars. So there's certain type of sugars that we can't digest. Some are fructose, so we get fructose from fruits. There's sorbitol, there's also artificial sweeteners, and also a different type of sugar which is produced by cabbage, broccoli, cauliflower. Then we have soluble fibers. So this comes from nuts, from beans, from fruits. Then there's insoluble fibers. These come from veggies and wheat. Then there is starches. So this comes from potatoes and wheat. So most of the time, having gas doesn't affect us. It's not something we really notice, but you can have excessive gas. And again, this is something that's related to what you eat. So what you feed your bacteria, if that ends up producing more gas from the bacteria, that's going to end up leading to bloating and to you fatting more. So then the obvious question is, why do some fats smell and some don't? And this smell is usually similar to the smell of rotten eggs. That's because it's sulfur. So that you do have some food which are called high sulfur foods. That means when you eat these foods, your bacteria is going to produce sulfur, meaning you're going to produce deadly fats. Apart from the occasional stinky fat, farting is normal. It shows that your gut bacteria, that your intestinal bacteria is working properly, and this is what we want. But there are some instances where too much gas is a sign of a problem. Just like people who are lactose intolerant, lactose is a type of sugar that's found in milk products. So most people have the enzyme to break down lactose, and we can absorb it in the small intestine. No problem. People who are lactose intolerant don't have the enzymes that break down this sugar. So it goes past our small intestine and gets into the colon. Once in the colon, the bacteria basically feast on all that lactose, and that they produce lots of gas because of that. So this is why one of the symptoms for people who are lactose intolerant is a lot of bloating and a lot of flatulence. And also in celiac disease. So celiac disease is an autoimmune disease. So this is where our own body is fighting itself. And majority of this happens in the small intestine. So the small intestine isn't able to absorb all the different nutrients and the things that we need. So this means they end up in the colon, again, where all that bacteria is. It eats up all this stuff that we can't absorb. And again, one of the symptoms is bloating and excessive flatulence. So our diet plays a big part in all our fats. I'm sure some of you remember the rhyme, beans good for your heart, the more you eat, the more you fat. That is very true. What we eat determines what comes out. So if you are dealing with excessive bloatedness, look at what you're eating. And some of the stuff that we eat is part of what is recommended for a healthy diet, such as fruits, vegetables, and whole wheats and oats. So this is part of a healthy diet. So you can start to eliminate some of the things from your diet and see if that helps out with your bloatedness. Well, that's it. That's all I wanted to let you know about fats. I would end this on a good fat joke, but I'm afraid it would stink. See you next time.